I got to hold this old, awesome Tomahawk, so of course I'm making a video about it. The hooked spike, I'll call it, is definitely the defining feature. But we'll get back to that. There's the striking head. See a hole with, I guess, a decorative loop. I mean, it doesn't seem like it could serve as a lanyard there. A pretty simple but cool decoration along the length of the haft. You might have been able to notice, but the stick is actually octagonal. I didn't bother to count the sides, but basically, you see what I mean. It's not perfectly round. A lot like a typical nunchaku stick. But anyway, back to the head and the edge. The two simple embellishments you see, that one there and then that possible maker's mark, they exist on both sides. And at the mention of the word tomahawk, you probably picture something a little bit more like this one here. I've seen more than a few antique tomahawks in person, got a playlist with those and more on the channel here, Antique Native American Weapons and Art, but I've never seen one quite like today's, so cool to come across it, and luckily there's a bit of handy information with it. So let me read it to you. Spiked tomahawk of cast iron, circa 1890 to 1920. The eye is round and the spike is generally rounded in section. On the obverse side of the blade is a simple incised decoration which was cast in the piece. It consists of a rectangle with two diagonal lines connecting the corners and forming an X. The haft bears remnants of black paint and evidence of charring. Near the head it is pierced with a small hole from which are suspended a short ring of beads and a tuft of horsehair, collected from the Chippewa. I wanted to know if I could find any analogous examples, not of the material so much as that shape with that interesting hook. So this is not obviously like that, but is an interesting comparison from the Revolutionary War era, at least according to the auction house selling it. And of course, it's pretty different. I mean, this looks like, a European battle axe to a certain extent, but it does have a somewhat similar hooked spike. This one, though, looks really sharp. Referring to the spike specifically, I don't doubt that the fighting axe-like blade is also sharp. Yeah, you would not want to catch that spike. And it's also not so hooked as in our example, so you could picture using this in a fight, in a stabbing motion. Whereas ours, even if it was never meant for fighting, I could picture using that deep, hooked, blunt side to hook someone, hook a weapon, hook a leg, whatever. This next one I found online certainly looks more tool-like to me anyway. I am not a tomahawk expert. But as you can see, it's supposed to be from the colonial era as well. Has a wicked long spike, sharper than ours, but nowhere near as sharp as the last one. And you know how Google image search works. Once I found this one, it recommended these to me. So, okay. We're seeing that spikes were definitely not unheard of, but despite what the various sellers say, are these actual tomahawks? And you know what I mean when I say that. Or are these just tools? Someone on the Blade Forums website a couple years ago had basically the same question about a different item. A different specimen, I mean. Authentic trade spike tomahawk or ice hatchet? And finding that, in turn, led me to this website here. And that definitely has all kinds of analogous items in it. Like these two here. Now, neither one has the hook, I'll grant you, but you can see what I mean and why I think it's relevant. Especially this one. Check that out. So just imagine that spike getting bent further. But could we find one online that looks a lot like ours, like really the same configuration? Yeah, how about this one here? Spiked tomahawk, European German. This one is so similar, I kept doing some photographic analysis work to try to make sure this isn't the exact one that I ended up holding, and I don't think it is. But clearly, there was a very specific design that the one we're looking at was a part of. And this one from the Met is pretty darn close, very close, part of the same design, I think we would clearly say, and notice it was listed as a Chippewa implement. And that turned out to be the key to these. If you search for Chippewa, spiked tomahawk, things like that, then you'll see more examples. And not that they're always listed that way, this one here isn't. Here's an up close, let's go back to ours. Here's an up close on that maker's mark. And if I recall from that snippet we read at the start of the video, they only mentioned this, the square with the diagonal lines, but on the other side, there's a circular version. And I have no idea if that exists on the very similar models that we've seen elsewhere, because I don't always show both sides. Here's an up close on the hook. So we've seen sharp versions that are a lot older than this. Remember, this one probably not made for actual fighting. And I can picture combat applications for the unsharpened version, like I mentioned before, and obviously for a sharpened version of a hook. And can only imagine that that's why it was there in the older versions. That was its purpose. Although, if you're kind of like chopping up some wood and clearing some brush or something, yanking some branches around, you could use it that way. Is it for rearranging the logs on a fire? Is that why both this specimen and another either had or talked about charring? I don't know. Maybe some of you do and can mention in the comments. But anyway, here's an up-close look at the decoration on the haft. Just a simple repeating pattern. Looks pretty cool though. And that is it for this video. So hope you enjoyed it. Thanks.